order of magnitude above. Oh, I gotta go. I gotta go. Anyways, my video is it's way too long. Okay. I guess I could do two parts. It's still recording, but um yeah. So anyways, I was just saying that some people I think would justify being called a narcissist. I think most of us. I think it's harmful to call someone like myself a narcissist. Um, because I don't want to be a bad person. I want to be a good person. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on myself throughout my life, and even with that, I still have failed to truly grasp the level of, I think, blindness and delusion, you know, of the fractured self, of the self I've been living in, the mental construct Aaron. And in fact, most of my life was, I don't know if I'd say most of my life, but some of my, I feel kind of like more formative years, which were coming later in life for me in my 20s, in my like late 20s and then into my 30s, was me really getting stronger in that fractured self, right? In that self, because I felt like I was becoming better and better. I was more and more secure in my beliefs, in my thoughts, and who I thought I was, and my life was reflecting that I was having more success um, in the last few years. Um, Things were looking up, and I was feeling stronger than ever on who I am and what I who I thought I was and stuff. But then since then, the scamdemic has thrown up everything into the air and said, "Wait a second, all you guys aren't who you think you are. The battle's not won. Here's a whole new aspect to the battlefield." And then everyone kind of realized, "Whoa, our team is not quite as unified as we thought. My own self is not as unified as I thought." And yeah, it's been incredibly. There's been many amazing. Uh, there's been a lot of amazing moments and stuff, but it's also been just incredibly painful. And but it has to happen, obviously. Um, so yeah, so I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting to kind of think about and point out that like that you can get stronger and stronger in your fractured self. It's not even your real self of who you really are, but you can get stronger in that and like achieve more success with that, and then be like, "Yep, I really know who I am," and that's exactly what I was doing. I really know who I am. I know what I want. But then reality was like, "Oh yeah," and just through upheaval, upheaved everything, or a lot of things, big things, and then I was making all these behaviors that were very harmful, self-destructive, and abusive towards others, and was like, "Wait a second, I thought I wasn't like that. I thought I wasn't that kind of person to do those things. I That's not what I believe. Like, why am I doing this, right?" And then it's like, "Wait a second, holy crap! Apparently my beliefs are bullshit. This whole thing's bullshit." Sorry for the language, and and then it's like, wait, and now it's like a whole tailspin of I guess it's like, what is it? When people have these spiraling downs, it's like the collapse of the fractured self, the collapse of the projected conceptual self. When it's like it has to die, I guess, right? Because it becomes like its own entity, like its own person, and it's almost like it has to die, and it does the death spiral. It doesn't die easily. It dies hard, and it wants to take yourself down with it or something. It's so weird. Like, you can get spiritual about this stuff, and you wonder, is there some spiritual nature of like demonic or some other power that gets into you and takes that control, and that's kind of can be why it's so powerful, and why it can make you do things that are what I feel would be like out of your character, you know, out of your true heart's desire or your inner child, I don't know. So that's just some interesting things to kind of think of. It seems to be like that because that's what's happened to me the last couple of years. I spiraled out of control and became self-destructive and did things, that I thought I would never do. I believed I would never do them, and I did them, and they were very harmful, very bad things. Um, and and I and my narcissism tries to defend it, and oh, I did it for these reasons. It's your fault, or it's whatever. It's the whole slew of ways of justifying it and rationalizing the bad behavior. Um, and and those things are not justifiable, right? They're not justifiable. You cannot rationalize abusing other people. Um, I mean, I guess the only way is like duress, right? Duress. That's which is in the law that if you do something that's like illegal or perhaps abusive to someone else, but you were under duress, that's like you thought you were gonna die, or you thought someone else was gonna be killed or something. Some extreme thing that you thought you had to perform this action that's harmful to others or to yourself. I think that might be the only excuse or reason, and that's not always necessarily a good reason or acceptable reason either. It depends on the circumstance, I suppose. But other than that, I think there is no reason or excuse, right? So if you go through your life like I have, I spent a lot of time trying to go to church, and that's how I was raised, and so that was a big part of my conception of beliefs, and they were very strong to think that I was this good. I mean, I was trying to be a good Christian guy, and I was trying to be this person, and obviously I was always aware that I failed and had all these failings and stuff, but deep down in your heart, you're trying to really concrete it in that I'm a special person. I'm a special person, a believer of God, a child of God. I believe in this stuff, and this is what I really believe. So even though I make mistakes, they're mistakes, and but but the real me doesn't believe in it. And it's like now the last couple of years, these things have been so greatly challenged because it's like, well, someone special to me would say, Aaron, like if you really believed those things, then you wouldn't perform those abusive actions. You wouldn't, right? And I was fighting and wrestling and denying and all this stuff, these things. But it seems, and I still struggle. I'm still struggling with it. But it seems like that's the truth. I don't know. That if you really believe it, you're coming from a real, true place, a true foundational place, and not just a conceptual place, you see? Because the conceptual beliefs that you think you have and the self that you think you are, that's based on narcissistic ego and conception, that's fragile. Where does that word, why does that word sound familiar? Fragility. So it's not based on something real. Now, like everything else in life, so you have, I had all these thoughts about myself, and I would easily and proudly tell people, loudly, oh, I believe this, I think this. And I would also put my judgments and thoughts of not just myself, but on others, And a lot of times it would be about women, like, oh, yeah, women should act like this, behave like this. Your guys are like this. But I would also say it about men. Oh, yeah, men are like this and that. And part of what adds to the confusion is that a lot of other people are also, I guess most people, or many, many people, you tend to attract echo chambers, so people who are kind of like yourself in these ways. So you're saying these things which are based on conception and narcissism and whatever, and then you get yourself around other people who are also like that, and you reinforce each other, and you feel like, oh yeah, this is so wonderful to meet people who think like I do and stuff. But they're a bunch of fragile narcissistic people too. And I'm not saying that they're bad people, and maybe there is an element of being bad, because this is something else I've been trying to think about and integrate, and I need to, I need to, is you have to harnessing the bad part of yourself, like the dark part of yourself, right? Jordan Peterson talks about this, and so you can't pretend that it doesn't exist. You have to harness it and channel it, and I think that's part of bravery and courage and strength, nobility, all these things. It's not like in the mental conception, you perceive yourself and eschew yourself to others that you are these traits, but what's it founded on, right? So it's just like everything is like that. If I say, oh, I can build a motorcycle and do a really great job, and then you're like, well, have you ever done that before? And I'm like, no. And it's like, well, it's just a conception. It's just an idea in your mind. And you probably would be good at it, but but you need to actually do it and prove it and learn. And then you'll have that experience and mastery to be able to say, I can do it. And you'll be coming from a real, authentic place, right? Authentic, not just a conception. Oh, I'm a good guy. I believe in no sex before marriage. I believe in traditional roles. I believe in women not wearing pants or cutting their hair. I believe in men, being the breadwinners, whatever, all these types of things. And these are all things I was raised with and told myself I believed. I was struggling hard to adhere to those and, canonify those into my beliefs. But it really just seems like all that is just conception, uh, most of which was, I want to be trying to be clear about it, like, but to some degree, it was foisted onto me by, yes, my mother, and I think she means well, and there's many good aspects and good teachings, um, in those things that I was taught and raised to believe, and but the problem is, well, there's so many problems with it, and so I had all those ideas, and I still, even though I feel like I'm having these kind of breakthroughs sometimes recently, um, I find myself I regress a lot, and to fending and thinking like I did before, and like it's strong. It's like I said, it's like that death flailing, that concept self doesn't seem to want to die, and it seems to want to take anyone else down with it, and it's been horrible. I've done some really bad things, and I'm gonna have to suffer the real consequences of the fake self. Um, and I need the authentic self to step in and actually be strong, not just boastfully tell everyone how strong I am when I've never proved it. In some ways, I think, we can talk about this stuff and you kind of feel like you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because it's not like I've been a horrible person who's abusive to everybody. Mostly my, I suppose, abuses have been very subtle, mostly very subtle, of like critiques on people, sometimes being a rain cloud or negative and stuff. Mostly it was onto myself because I isolated myself, increasingly over my life. Just the longer I've lived, I've isolated myself more and more. Um, but I suppose that those are my abuses to others as well, where and just my neglect to others and my failures and flailings with others were like I didn't know how to be somebody's teammate or partner or comrade on the battlefield or anything, and I would be critical, and I would always, I guess I'd be like judgmental and um, um, lecture. I would like lecture and instruct other people, as like their teacher, like as if I was some superior person, um, that could teach them. But where was I teaching them from? I didn't have, you know, I have very little. So I was trying to say though that like not everything about me or like a narcissist or someone who struggles with things like I do is all bad. Like I've never done anything good in my life, or everything I ever did or expressed or said, or every relationship was all fake, phony, and false, and abusive, and worthless. No, that's not true. Of course, it's not true. Um, but the results are quite sparse and minimal. That I think that is the truth. And working within the framework of your fractured conceptual narcissistic self, you can still do good things. And right, of course you can. Like, I did volunteer works before, and I would give money to panhandlers, and I would help people move their furniture or just whatever. Plenty of good little things that I did. Um, and try to mediate my family's arguments and try to counsel them. That's one of the biggest things I've done in my life, is trying to mediate and counsel my family, which is something I shouldn't have been doing and was not my role, never was my role, but I felt like that was also foisted on me, and to some degree I chose and accepted that. Um, and so yeah, so it's hard to say, I guess there's so many things to talk about and aspects to talk about, and how far reaching all these consequences are in every aspect of life and in every interaction. It shapes us. And so, yeah, I guess we need to, and that can be so difficult for people to identify what's their delusional conceptual beliefs about external things, but also about themselves, because it can be so canonized. I feel like, is that the right word? Canonized? I don't Canonized, that you really believe that that's you, right? And that is a difficult thing to broach, because you're like, well, this is me. This is me. And then you'll have excuses and rationales and all this stuff for the times when your behavior and your life and all these things don't mesh up with what you say your beliefs are, right? There'll be reasons. One of the biggest ones will be victim, that you're a victim, and that you're helpless and stuff like this, and that's why you couldn't, or I guess the Christian style thing might be like, well, the devil influenced you, put bad influences, other people to influence you, to influence you, or that your flesh is corrupt, and that you have lust in your flesh, and you got this and that. And it's almost like part of Christianity is it, I've had some interesting thoughts recently that so much of this, like, duality is forgive the word again, but like, it's like canonized. It's like part of the fabric of so much of reality. Maybe the very, so much of it is that, like, and that, like, the left right paradigm, um I don't know, blue and red, black and white, good and bad, Democrat, left and right, just all those paradigms of, like, opposites, right? And then, like, narcissism, and then whatever the other one is, and then, like male and female even, and then, like, I feel like this split personality goes so deep into our psyches that it's not just on an individual level. I've begun to have some thoughts that it's like a whole societal humankind level, so that, and obviously people have been talking about kind of like some sort of transcendental ascension of humanity, which the Bible and many books and people and stuff have been talking about in various ways for probably thousands of years. Um, and so there does seem to be, like, what's the question is, like, are our entire species, like, experiencing, like, this fractured self? And you can get into some weird crazy stuff where it gets into, like Kabbalah and Adam Kadmon and these ideas of, like androgyny, and, like, the whole aspect of, like, unity of the sexes, like the divinity of somebody possessing both male and female attributes in one body, and that's like the divine thing, right? Like, some of these religions and or cults or belief systems, whatever, literally, they really espouse that very literally, very, very, very plainly. They say it like that Adam from the Bible was androgynous, that he was both male and female, and then like maybe the evil God or whoever split him up, and that was like the fall. The fall was like losing his feminine side, and now you're two separate people who are experiencing otherness, right? There's you and there's me, and we're separate, and that divide, that chasm causes, opportunity and to have strife, to have conflict, to have trouble, and then look at how the world has turned out. It's full of conflict and strife and trouble, and you versus me, and I gotta protect myself and all this. So it's all very interesting. I'm trying to synthesize the entire. That's what I do. That's what I do is, you know, work on ideas and theories and concepts. That's my main work. So, um, bringing it a little bit back towards like the Christian aspect, it almost seems like it in itself, and I'm not trying to beat up on that because I don't know too much about other belief systems like Islam or Buddhism or whatever, Hinduism. These things I don't know too much about them. I have general ideas about them and whatever, but so Christianity is like, it almost seems like it's institutionalized fracturing of self. It's like an institutionalized, kind of canonized narcissism. I feel like that's powerful. I feel like energy, right? It's interesting. It's really interesting to me. So much of this duality and paradigms are just the separating of self. It's always like the dividing. Like, I mean, the Bible says that, like it's to some degree that it says that like they came Jesus came to bring a sword to divide, right? It's a divider. I know that in the churches I was raised in, they would preach a lot about that the word of God is a two-edged sword. The Bible says that it's a divider, right? It cuts even asunder to the dividing of the thoughts and intents of the heart, including the bones and the joints and the marrow. So it's this way of saying that this philosophy, these beliefs, these ways of thinking, they are not uniters. They are not uniters. They're dividers. Like, and they say it as a good thing because they're like, well, there's the bad ones over there, and we don't want to be like them. And if we follow the word of God, not if we follow it, just like that, it itself under its own power divides these things. And I spent, most of my life trying to understand that and internalize that and believe and all these beliefs. So this is just kind of a certain aspect, and I don't want to, you, you understand I was raised with this stuff and identify with it, and I still do. It's still like this is a whole process I'm going through, whatever the process is, if it's a process at all. I almost feel like it's blasphemous for me to maybe talk about this stuff kind of thing, but I think it's so important to be free to just to talk and say what you think, because I'm just discussing a thing. It doesn't mean I'm not laying ultimate judgment on. I'm just talking. I'm trying to figure things out. Um, but it almost seems like Christianity in itself is, I don't know if there's a better word, but like institutionalized narcissism, and probably most things are. Probably most things are um, reinforcing the division of selves, like a fracturing of self, and probably, I mean, can that be a good thing? Anything that would instruct and teach or reinforce fracturing of self, and therefore the fracturing of humanity as a whole, and you could probably even say the world and the universe, like that's how profound it is, right? Anything that does that, can that be a good thing? Can that be a good thing? We don't need to be, we need to be united, do we not? We need to be united, not fractured. I always have thought of things, you know, I've always thought I was a deep thinker, and I see things like in patterns and parallels and stuff. And so I feel like, and I was taught this a lot, because there was a lot of value, I think, of what I was taught, in the church and in the Christianity and stuff. But like, there seems to be like parallels between things of like when you can observe something on like a microscopic level or a small level, like a personal individual level or whatever, there's usually observable like truths, patterns, or however you want to describe it, that on a macroscopic, on a large level, are also true and applicable, right? Um, it's true down here and it's also true up there. You might observe certain things on a cellular level that you also observe on like a cosmic, you know, interstellar level. And I think that these types of things are true. And I've used this as, or it uses me to understand, to apply understanding to other things, right? Because if you can observe and understand this thing on the small level, that, because I'm just a little person, if I can observe it in my own life and in the people's lives around me, then you learn that you can also apply it on much, much larger scales. And it's true there too. So you're able to apply your understanding and observations onto far reaching areas that you're not like physically capable of doing, or in a way, even mentally, in a way, like, because you can't really perceive the universe. Like, you can sort of, like, you can't observe it, you kind of can, but anyways, I think you understand what I'm saying. Is So forgive me, I try to stay focused here. Christianity, like an institutionalized narcissism, what else is? Probably education system, like, and I'm not saying that, like I said, like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's not that it's all bad. um Christianity or the churches and the way that they teach these things, or any other religion or doctrine or creed, or education. I think there's good things in all of them, but perhaps there's also bad things in all of them. And maybe at the core and at the heart of the badness of all of them and all things might be that fracturing, that splitting, right? So on a big scale, fracturing and splitting; on the individual scale, your true self fractured and split, right? So you apply on the small level up to the greatest levels. So if life is just precious, right? All life is precious. And I mean, you can think about like insects being precious, or humans being precious, and making those distinctions. But like, and some people just say all life and they won't kill a fly, you know what I mean? Anyways, but yet our society and our thinking and many institutions make separations between who's valuable and who isn't, right? Like the doctor is valuable, the janitor not very valuable. And just as an example, that alcoholic who does art, they make art, but they're a raging asshole and an alcoholic. They're not very valuable or something. But the guy who's a programmer and he makes apps that are worth millions of dollars, and millions of people download them on their phones, he's high value. But is that not institutionalized fracturing of selves? Who's more? They're both life. They're both life. And I mean, this stuff can go on and on. I could talk for like ever about this stuff, because it's like you can look at technology and all these things that society has done and achieved and say, and I've been a proponent against a lot of this stuff, or a detractor, I suppose you'd say, in the idea of like progress, like technological progress, because like, what does it really achieve? Technological progress, some of them I think are absolutely wonderful, like a bicycle. That's probably my favorite example to use as one of my favorite inventions. I think I think there's not much downsides. I think it's a phenomenal, wonderful invention. there probably is some downsides. I don't know, like just maybe, I'm not sure. You'd have to really analyze the specific processes required to create a bicycle and get the steel and everything. That's fine. But it's a wonderful device, I think. And but then you have, these are part of the big conspiracy theories and all this stuff these days. It's like Wi-Fi and 5G and the increasing radiation and radio waves and all this stuff that we're all being exposed to. And it's like, in the name of what? Progress? In the name of what? Prosperity and money? Well, whose prosperity? Because people have been afraid of this stuff for decades, saying that this stuff is harmful. And as they increase the potency of it, like 5G and whatever else might come after that, it increases the harm. And so it's like, is it causing cancer or Alzheimer's and frying our brains and making us more neurotic? And who knows, right? Like all the stuff it does to us. So it's like, okay, it's amazing and powerful that we can, the internet, and we can communicate wirelessly and all this stuff. And I'm doing this on my phone. That's amazing. But there's also harm. There's also a lot of harm there. So it seems like the ancients, there are theories and stuff about the ancients that they were able to have technology in a way like what we have, but in a non-harmful way. I mean, and I know you can get into some fantastical realms, and how fantastical doesn't mean it's not true, of like telepathy or levitation or different things that seem like magic or impossible, but we've all been fascinated by these concepts and ideas which have been around since the beginning of humanity. It seems like these ideas of incredible machinations or personal powers. The Bible itself says that you could move mountains. Say to this mountain, be thou moved. And if you believe it enough, if you fully believe it, that mountain will move. Or you say to that tree, uproot yourself and be planted over there, that the tree would do it. And, so I think there is something really there, that the humanity and the fracturing of selves, the fracturing of us away from God, of us away from each other, of men away from women, of, people of different races and colors and creeds and ethnicities, of them away from of themselves, of each other. All these fracturings and divisions, you know, and everyone knows that we talk about that divide and conquer. It's always about dividing and conquering, right? Because a unified people strengthen numbers. Like we know that. So it's like, and I love to throw out little anecdotes like that because they always reinforce the pattern of truth, the parallels, right? Um, because a truism, something that's like true that you can just kind of throw around, and it's like it's applicable to, like, if that's what makes something timeless, because if it's really true, then it's applicable through all time and through all ages and through all peoples and all things like that. You know, that's why. Because it's uniting, it's not dividing, it's powerful. Anyways, wow, I did not expect with